Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about present perfect tense. So here's the table of contents. First we're going to take a look at the form of the tense. How do we construct present perfect tense? Next we are going to take a look at the functions of the tense. When do we use the tense? And finally we're going to take a look at the usage of the tense. We're going to put present perfect tense into context and see how it played out in real life situations. So let's take a look at the form of the tense first. So the present perfect tense is formed from the present tense of the auxiliary verb have, which can be derived into has or have, depending on which pronouns we are using, all right? And then we combined it with the past participle of the verb that we are using. For example, if we are using pronouns he, she, or it, we must use has, all right? This is the matter of subject-verb agreement. Then we paired it with the past participle of the verb be, all right? So the original form of the verb been is be, right? So the past participle of be is been. Live is live. So in PP, live turns into lived, right? So when we're using are, you, we, they, we use have, and then we paired it with the past participle form of the verb live, which is lived. So in example 1, he has been to Japan. In example 2, I have lived in Mongkok since 2012. So depending on different pronouns that we're using different auxiliary verb has or have, all right? And then the verb must be in its past participle form. Must be in its past participle form. So what is a past participle? A past participle is a form of verb. It usually ends in ed if the verb is a regular verb. So for irregular verb, the past participles are very different from its bare form and past tense form. So remember, for regular verb, the past participle ends in ed, right? For irregular verb, the past participles are different from its bare form and past tense form. So in the following, we're going to take a look at some examples. So on the left-hand side, we are looking at a regular verb table, all right? On the other hand, on the right-hand side, we are looking at an irregular verb table. So in regular verb, as we talked about, the past participle ends in ed. It always ends in ed, all right? So as the past tense form. So this is why we call it regular verb. So you can predict, you can anticipate the end of the past tense and in past participle. It always ends in ed. Whereas the irregular verb, the past tense form is different, right? The spelling is different. It doesn't end in ed, and also the pp is different sometimes from its past tense, and sometimes they look exactly the same. So in swim, the past tense form is swam. So the spelling, we do not see any ed here, right? So we call this an irregular verb. And then in its pp form, swum is another different spelling from its past tense form. It also doesn't end in ed. So we cannot predict the spelling of the irregular verb. So that is why we call them irregular verbs. Sometimes the past tense form of an irregular verb is the same as the past participle. For example, taught and brought. You have to memorize the irregular verb table by heart, and most of the time, most of the verbs that we are using in English are irregular verbs. So it is essential for you to learn how to conjugate, how to turn the present tense form of a verb into the past tense form and past participle form. Alright, now let's take a look at the functions of the tense. First, we use present perfect tense to talk about something that started in the past and continues in the present. And second, we use present perfect tense to talk about experiences which we have up to the present. And third, we use present perfect tense to talk about recent past. Alright, so present perfect tense is somewhat lie in between present tense, present continuous tense, and past tense. So if an action started in the past and hasn't finished, which tense should we use? Alright, we cannot use past tense because the action is not completed. So in this situation, what tense should we use? Then present perfect tense play these roles in this situation. So we talk about something that started in the past but hasn't quite finished yet. Alright. So now we're going to put examples into the functions. So let's have a further understanding of how to use the tense. For function 1, we use present perfect tense to talk about something that started in the past and continues in the present, right? In example 1, they have been married for nearly 50 years. Example 2, the government has started building the swimming pool since September. In both of the examples, you can see the present perfect tense is comprised of has and have, and then the PP of the form. So we need both elements that they are combined together to form a present perfect tense, alright? So in example 1, the couple has been married for nearly 50 years. For nearly 50 years. So are they divorced? No. The action of marrying started 50 years ago and it hasn't ended. It hasn't ended. So the action of marrying continues. It started in the past, it started 50 years ago, and it continues to the present. So they are an old married couple. Alright. Another example would be, take a look at example 2. The government has started building the swimming pool since September. So we do not build a swimming pool in 1 day or 2 days or in 2 months, right? It takes years to build a swimming pool, to build a public swimming pool. So the government has started doing something. They have started building the swimming pool since September. For example, this is the timeline, right? This is September, let's say 2020. Now is 2021. Maybe it will finish in 2022. Alright? So the action of building started in the past and continues to the present. And it will continue doing so in the future. So in this case, we're using present perfect tense to talk about action that started in the past, started in September 2020, and continues in the present and continues now to the future. Alright. So if you're paying attention to example 1 and example 2, we use two adverbs for expressing time. We normally use since and for as indicators for starting time of an event and duration of an event, respectively. We use since as the starting point of an event, and we use for the duration of an event. So in this example, we're going to take a look at the difference in meaning if we are using since and for. Alright? So in this scenario, Billy is now 15 years old. Let's draw the timeline of an event. Alright? So Billy is now 15 years old. 15 years old. And he started learning violin since he was 5 years old. 5 years old. All right. So he has played violin for how many years? 10 years. All right. And he continues to play violin. He continues to play violin. Right. So example 1. Billy has played violin since he was 5 years old. So when we are using the time indicator since, we are looking at the starting point of an action. So he started playing violin since he was 5 years old. This is the point where Billy started playing violin, right? But on the other hand, when we say Billy has played violin for 10 years, so we are talking about the duration. How long has Billy played the violin? So he started at 5, right? He started at 5. Now he is 15 years old. So he has played violin for 10 years. How long has he played? 10 years, right? So when we are using since, we are looking at the starting point of an action. But when we are using for, we are looking at the duration. How long has an action been going on? All right. And we are using present perfect tense, which means the action started in the past and continues in the present. So Billy plays violin every now and then he has played violin since he was 5 years old. Also, he has played violin for 10 years. Another use for present perfect tense is that we use it to talk about experiences which we have up to the present. So when we are talking about experience, once you have the experience, no one can take it away. So for example, my last birthday was the worst day I have ever had. All right. So the last birthday was the worst. Is there another worst day he or she has had? Not yet. So for his or her experience, his or her last birthday was the worst. All right. Because he or she hasn't had another worst day yet. Okay. In example 2, I have been to Paris 3 times. Can anyone take away your experiences of going to Paris? No. So your experience stays as a continuum of fact, right? So you have been to Paris for 3 times. That experience started in the past and continued in the present. So no matter how long has it passed since your last visit to Paris, you have still visited Paris for 3 times if you haven't been there again, right? So this is your experience. This is your experience that you have up to the present. Never having an experience is also counted as an experience. For example, I have never been to Beijing. So never being there is also an experience that you don't have up to the present. But we add never. We add never in between of has, have, and the PP. When we are talking about experience that we do not have up to the present, we use never. Example 1, I have never been to Beijing. Example 2, we have never eaten in a vegetarian restaurant. Example 3, Peter has never flown on an aeroplane before. So in combination of never and before is also common in negating the sentence. So the third use of the present perfect tense is to talk about recent past. For example, we have just got back from a holiday. Mandy has met Peter recently. So we often use adverb, these time indicator, just, recently, and only to express time for an recent event. But the time is not explicit. It's not explicit as last month. It's not explicit as yesterday. It's not explicit as this morning. So when we are seeing these time indicators, last something, yesterday, and this something, we are using past tense. Otherwise, if we are describing an recent event and then it paired with just, recently, and only, we can consider using present perfect tense. Lastly, be very careful. We do not use present perfect tense when we see time indicators like what I just said, yesterday, last something, this something, and past something. We use past tense for the above adverb. We use past tense for these. So when you're when you're seeing these time indicators, you must use past tense. Alright, this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you can learn well and use the present perfect tense well in daily situations.